Hi guys, so I thought I'd do a quick tournament review for a tournament I went to yesterday actually, at the time of recording. So it's a non-GPHL one, but it's one of the nice local ones at Wargames Workshop in Milton Keynes that I like to go to when possible. Um, so it's obviously just a nice sort of little one day at 800 points, 3 games. So since we're nearing the end of this edition, when I was thinking about what army to take, I didn't want to take anything too gross. So there's a few legendary legions I want to try before they go. So I want to try Vanquishers because I've had them painted for like a year now, but I've just not quite brought myself to inflict it on anyone yet. So I thought possibly, but then I thought it's probably a bit strong for sort of one of these uh, local type tournaments. And then I was kind of umming and ahhing about some other stuff. I thought Return of the King might be quite cool. Uh, it's 800 points, you get a lot of the toys as well. And then, there's a few others I was thinking about. I like Riders of Theoden, but I've played them quite a lot recently, to be fair. But I haven't taken Depth of Moria in probably like 2 years because I think the last time I used it was when I went to a team event in Manchester, and sort of for various reasons, including the team format, I just kind of got horrible matchups and slapped repeatedly. So kind of just got retired, so I couldn't be bothered to deal with it. I really like it, and I think it's fun, and it's enjoyable and it's good, but it's not ridiculously good. So I thought that might be quite a cool one. So my list was super simple. So it was the Balrog, and then 4 goblins with shield, 6 with spear, 4 prowlers, and captain with shield, goblin with bow, 3 with shield, 4 with spear, 2 prowlers, 1 drum. And then another captain with shield, 2 goblins with bow, 3 with shield, 4 with spear, 2 prowlers, and then an all captain with bow, and then 2 goblins with bow, 4 with shield, 4 with spear, 2 prowlers. So that's 53 models at 800 points. So I know there's a few things you can do. So first of all, I thought the troll might be a fun option, but I actually just don't think sort of he's sort of okay. I think he's more of a sort of theme slash fun choice, but I just sort of like the goblin spam really. So I didn't take the cave troll, which is the only other big beastie you can take. The Moria Black Shield Shaman is then another choice, but I I've taken depth to 2 tournaments, and what I took him to Scouring like 2 years ago ish, maybe 3, and I got on really well with him. And I think I won like 4 out of 6 games, and then I took it with a Black Shield Shaman, and then I think I like won like 1 out of 6. So it was pretty grim. But I think the Black Shield Shaman's good, but I don't like him in this list. I don't know why. I just think he's a bit of a waste because the tremor rarely comes off. The shatter, like you might shatter a banner, but I'd rather just sort of have as many captains as I can to get as much march and stuff. So I think if you're going to take Black Shield Shamans, you probably sort of lean into having lots of them. Well, 2 or 3. So I only got one. Um, so he didn't come, and then the Moria Goblin normal Shaman is pointless because you've got the sort of auto passing courage, and they're not breaking till the Balrog's been hurt, so you don't really need a Shaman. So then it's just spamming captains, and I have 2 with shield, 1 with bow. I kind of like a bow on a captain anyway, just because it's a nice little might powered shot if needed. So obviously you might get a cheeky shot, and the point of might, it might be someone's horse, so why not? So that's the list. It's not super duper complicated. So yeah, well, I suppose just in terms of the strength, obviously, if the Balrog turns up and rolls well, then it's pretty good because he's obviously got the free hero combat, the lash where he can draw people in. So I quite like using the lash on a hero because if you hit them, you're not going to kill them in one go, but then you draw them in, and then that helps the heroic combat. Because otherwise, you rely on hitting a warrior, not killing them, dragging them in to then combat. Although sometimes it's nice just to whip someone and just murder them, so that's interesting. You get the free combat. The Shadow and Flame thing's cool. So if they need their leader to come and deal with you, or like a big hero or whatever, then they're going to be set ablaze on the 2-up. Um, so that's good. And then I think goblins with the battlefield wide drum are just actually like pretty good because you obviously have spam and everyone gets a reroll. You don't need to engineer any sort of nonsense. It's just like you just get it. It's good. Um, and the prowlers are very good as well because obviously 10 of them is pretty good. I only own 12, and I think to fit 2 in it would have been a pain for points, so I didn't bother. Um, Obviously you can, if you get them into the right person, you can piercing strike after 2-hand, and then you can, if you get backstabbers as well, that could sort of result in a sort of net +3 above where you would be. For example, if you're striking against strength 6, so that's very good. And obviously, if you get enough friends in with not 2-handing and then with rerolls, that's quite cool. Or you kind of stick them in for coup de grace type thing. Um, so those are the strengths. Obviously, the weakness is the speed of the list. The Balrog's movement 6. Actually, no, he is movement 6. Yeah, I was about to say, was I moving him 6 the whole day? And he was actually 8. I think it's the dwellers that are movement 8, isn't it? Um, so yeah, he's obviously faster than everyone else, but all the goblins are movement 5. You have marches, but that's also what you're relying on for your heroic moves. So it's not mobile, and if you come up against stuff like an all cav list, it's not great. And then what compounds that is your drum is if you're against a fast list and you need to be spreading out across the board and stuff. Obviously, it leaves your drum vulnerable. So then you got to either leave enough guys back to protect it, or kind of accept that you're going to lose it. But then that's your banner points and sort of table wide goblin rerolls. Final weakness is basically the Balrog, because if he fluffs, then if he just doesn't turn up, then you're a bit stuffed really. Because you have games where he gets the 6 every time, or the one time you roll like a 5, your opponent then rolls a 2, so it's kind of, you get games like that. But then you get games where your opponent just gets 6s, Balrog just doesn't, and he just doesn't do anything. And I think the rest of the list is actually strong, even though it's 550 points like the rest of the list, because of the battlefield wide reroll and just the numbers. I actually still think they can actually outgrind a lot of stuff. But obviously, if the Balrog turns up, does nothing, then that's a massive problem for this. Sorry, circling back to the strength thing. Obviously, a massive strength of this is you don't count as broken whilst the Balrog's 6 wounds or more. If he's 5 wounds or less, you break as normal. If he's dead, you break immediately. If someone's killed the Balrog, they deserve to break you immediately, frankly. But getting 5 wounds off can be quite useful, because obviously the late game, this list's strong as well, because obviously everyone just sort of sticks around as long as the Balrog's having a good time. But yeah, equally, I've had him. I've had nightmares about this, but the Balrog, I played him once in Contest of Champions, convinced I was going to win, and he was against Assault on Isengard, and then my opponent got hit 6 to scatter, and then sort of 3 in the ways, or 4 in the ways, it might have been actually including the combat he was in, and then wounded as well. He did that twice in a row, 2 ballista, and the Balrog just died. So obviously everything immediately broke, and it was just grim. So obviously it can go wrong quite quickly. But that's pretty much it. Let's just get into the games. Round 1 was actually a really nice one to start off with, because we were put on the Moria board, and I was against David, who was bringing Iron Hills. So his list was Dane on pig, obviously, captain on goat, and captain on foot with Matuk, and then a ballista. And we were doing the veto system. We were doing the hold objectives pool. I think we ended up on capture and control, because obviously I didn't want to play domination, because that would potentially leave objectives spread out. I can't remember the other one. Was it breakthrough? Maybe you didn't want to play that one. I can't remember now. But we played the one with the 4 objectives, 2 on the middle line, and then 1 in his board, and then board side, and then 1 in mine. And they're all worth the same. So it's that one. You kind of flip them from neutral to your control or your opponent's control or whatever. That was that. Obviously, the game plan was to put the Balrog in immediately, to protect him from shooting from the ballista. So the ballista was the thing I was worried about, and Dane I was sort of worried about, but I don't really see him killing the Balrog, so. But I was still worried about him in that he could quagmire the Balrog and all the dwarves could just munch through my dudes, which is very, very possible. I didn't realise how rusty I was actually, because I haven't played. I mean, I've played some scenarios, obviously for the channel and stuff, but they don't. I mean, I'm kind of not. I don't really care if I win or not, if you know what I mean. I just kind of want to roll some dice and scenarios and stuff. So I haven't played a competitive game since Mini Madness, I think, which was in June. So I kind of, I don't know. I just felt so rusty. I kind of felt a bit bad for David because he had to sort of play me, who was sort of kind of a bit half brain dead. But we managed, and it was a really fun game. And so I kind of just deployed along the centre line. He spread his warbands out, so he kind of had Dane sort of centre-ish, but also covering an objective. He had his war goats covering the middle, and then he had his Mattock dudes covering one objective. So I was holding my back objective, and then the middle one, and then I was holding one of the side ones. He could have had the side and then his back one. So that's how it started. And then basically turn one I wasn't able to get into combat, and he had a shot at the Balrog, scattered off the Balrog, and then hit a goblin next to him, and I think hit the goblin and knocked the one down next to him, I think, and didn't kill him. And basically the story was on the left was that I think I killed a dude or two, but ultimately I was kind of bouncing off him a bit because he only had 3 guys over there, so 2 Mattocks and a crossbow, and I was just sort of bouncing off. I think I killed the crossbow at sort of second or third time of asking after he kind of shot a prowler, so it wasn't kind of too crazy. And then his Mattock dudes on the right basically used the scenery really well to sort of castle up in the middle, so it stopped me kind of overwhelming with numbers and sneaking past, but it also did serve to box him in slightly. So he was holding that objective, and there was sort of no way I was going to be able to deal with it, basically. But I controlled my back one, the middle one, and then I was obviously pushing to try and kill the bulk of his force in the middle, so that can then sort of spread out. In terms of my drum, I just kept it to one side with 4 dudes next to it to sort of, block them from being attacked in combat immediately, because I was worried about the goat riders sort of breaking through and killing my drum, basically. So I kind of put enough guys there to make sure I didn't get killed immediately, and obviously if there was any shooting, obviously they could pick up the sticks, and so my drum was fairly safe. And yeah, the middle bit was a bit grindy. I think Dane killed some stuff, the dwarves killed some stuff, I kind of chipped off a dwarf or two, but ultimately it was the Balrog coming around the side, and then I think he killed a dwarf or two, combat killed a dwarf or two, and then I think he combated into Dane, either that or he combated and then subsequent turn sort of charged in, and I think Dane struck. I was thinking whether a defense would have been better, but I actually don't know if he has defense. So not sure on that one. But he rolled very low, and basically the Balrog came in, and I think I think I trapped him. I think that was the idea. So I think he basically just one pumped Dane, which was pretty nice. And then after he killed Dane, he sort of came round and killed the 2 Mattock guys that were sort of attacking my left objective. So that was basically left objective secure because the ballista was at the back. And then he had a crossbow, 2 Mattocks attacking that objective. They were all dead. And then the Balrog sort of floated into the middle and then sort of carried on mopping up and making his way basically towards David's back objective. So yeah, that was that. And I was sort of just mopping up in the middle. The Goat Riders were incredibly underwhelming, not through any sort of particular thing David did or didn't do, just because they rolled awfully. Um, the captain, I think, called a combat and it didn't go anywhere, which was surprising because he was like fighting a couple of goblins, and I think he just fluffed the roll basically. And yeah, the other ones didn't sort of do anything too impressive either. There was a crossbow on the back objective, and I think it was he seemed to be the one who just shot a goblin, went into combat, killed a goblin, and just sort of did that a few times. But eventually, um, basically, the Balrog cleared up the back objective just in time. Most people on the ballista ran away, and then the ballista had kind of been popping shots at people, but it basically did nothing the whole game. So incredibly poor rolling, unfortunately, including rolling a one and then re-rolling it into a one. So it's like it was that sort of energy this game. So basically, yeah. So I had three of the objectives, and then obviously the one they were castling around, their captain was sort of just chipping away, and he sent a couple of guys on a mission to sort of sneak around and take my back objective, but I sort of intercepted and killed those guys, fortunately. Um, and then yeah, so, stuff started running away, and then I think if the game had ended when the earliest it could have, then I think David would have held an objective, and I think if it ended the turn after that, it would have been a neutral objective. But then the problem was, is it ended the turn after that when the only modeler left alive was the captain on the objective, making sure it was neutral, and then it just meant I was able to surround and kill him. Basically because I think at that point it was a tabling, which then ends the game automatically. But I think it ended anyway. I can't remember. But that just then meant I had all the objectives, so I kind of got maximum VPs from that. Because obviously I wasn't broken, the Balrog was untouched, and yeah, obviously didn't concede leader points, had all the objectives, and so that was pretty good actually. Yeah, David didn't do anything sort of wrong at all. I think splitting up was good because I kind of, even though I have way more models than him, I kind of felt a bit thin because he'd sort of whack a few goblins, and then I kind of felt like I didn't have the overwhelming numbers needed to um, do stuff. So I kind of felt that with his, so it's the objective on my right where he castled up, I kind of didn't have enough where I felt the confidence to sort of push around all the sides and stuff. Like eventually I did break in, but it wasn't with huge numbers until the end when I could just move my entire army across because everything else was dead. So yeah, so splitting up was a good choice, I think. Yeah, Dane next to the Balrog's always a tricky one because obviously that's the only way he's going to deal with the Balrog. But then obviously I was able to get in and kill him all one go. So that was, yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky one. I think the ballista needs to do a lot of work as well. And I was sort of saying I wasn't sure if he would deploy back and then just take some shots with the ballista and hope for the best. But then the problem is he's conceding the whole board to me then, isn't he? So it's yeah. So even if he does kill the Balrog and sort of just start crushing goblins everywhere, it could be that the game doesn't actually end in time for him to sort of run across the board with his little legs to capture objectives. So yeah, so I didn't really think that was a great idea either. But yeah, I don't really know what the answer is, but it went well for me, so that was good. It was actually a really nice game, and I kind of felt like by the end I'd sort of dusted the cobwebs off. But it was kind of, it was actually weird. I felt like incredibly rusty. I've not had that in a while. So it was nice to get back in the swing of it. But yeah, that was cool. It was really a pleasant game. So on to game two. So game two was another set of objective-based missions. So we had the hold objectives. This was just a normal objective thing. So you had like retrieval, seize the prize, and then something else that I can't remember, to be honest. It's embarrassing, but I can't remember the other one. Um, but I was against Liam, and I have a lot of time for this list. It was two great beasts of Gorgoroth, but the army leader was Hood Beastmaster on top of a Mumak of Harrod, rappelling lines, and just sort of archers on there. And then there was a Taskmaster with a bunch of spearmen to allow him to get the 50% bows on the Mumak. And also a Taskmaster could whip the Great Beast Taskmaster, because I think because they're a bit lower to the ground, sorry, not Taskmaster, the Great Beast Commander, because of how much closer they are to the ground. I think the Taskmaster can sort of stand behind them and whip them, which is quite cool. Whereas the Moomac, you basically have to stand in front of it, which is not advisable because he'd probably only be doing that once. But yeah, so we what did we end up playing? We did Retrieval, so it was one we deployed diagonally. I was actually quite nervous about this because I know on sort of the one hand you've got a Balrog who just kind of roll up the war beasts and have a good time, which yeah, I mean possibly, but on the flip side, a couple of sort of bad sort of bunch of tramples and you could be in trouble. Like if if the Balrog gets trampled a few too many times, and then you could lose 5 wounds quite easily, and then you're breaking normally, and again just trampling goblins isn't that hard. So it's one of those where you kind of think, yes, it's a fun list and I have the advantage, but also the second you get sort of complacent about it is the second you probably just get half your army squashed, and then Haradrim rappelling down onto the objective and all that sort of thing. I don't know if I played this right actually, because there was a river in the middle with 2 fords. Obviously the Warbeast didn't care about the fords, but the building was quite constrained by buildings anyway. The board was constrained by buildings anyway. So there was kind of 2 routes from one board edge to the other. We made sure there was enough routes for the Warbeast as well, so they could sort of circle around happily enough. But obviously there's still enough cover for me to do my thing. So yeah, I stuck the drum in some ruins that weren't going to get hit by bowfire or trampled, so I didn't leave them a bodyguard, which was quite nice because it gave me a few extra dudes. I didn't really know what to do, so I kind of deployed 1 load to intercept the Warmumak of Harad in kind of a bow shape to avoid sort of how many people we could trample in one go. Some archers at the back to shoot up at the Howdah. And then against the Great Beast, I deployed some guys right up against the middle because I deployed first with those guys. I wasn't sure where he was going to deploy. Then he stuck the Great Beast opposite, so I put the Balrog on the side with the Great Beasts, and then his guys behind the first rank. So obviously that presented a juicier target in the sense there's more stuff to go through, but 8 inches would have only been able to squish the first row. So that was the thinking, and then the Balrog can sort of just come in and have a grand old time. I was desperate to not. Actually, if my recollection's correct, I think everything in terms of priority and roll-offs that could have gone my way did go my way. So that's worth remembering whilst I relate this tale. So I lost first priority, which was good because it forced him to move the war beasts up. I mean, obviously he could have not moved, but then I'd be on top of him, and then that's not great either. So obviously the Moomac was sort of sauntering up. Great beasts both went in. I remember it was not nearly as impressive as it could have been. I think one of them killed like 1 dude, and the other one might have even killed nobody. I can't remember now, but it was pretty poor. I think it was literally like 1, 2, 3 casualties, something like that. I think the bowfire was worse. I think the bowfire sort of got me up to more like 10 casualties by the end of the first turn. But it basically meant I was able to charge one of the Great Beasts with Mr. Balrog. Now I believe, that's right. Yeah, so I put the Balrog and some goblins into the Great Beast. I basically won the combat, and then actually heroic combated off of the Great Beast, which was sort of a pretty Chad move, to be fair. So I thought, only the King of the Dead normally heroic combats off of war beasts, but the Balrog can do it too with goblin friends. And I spent both points of might on the captain with the bow to sort of get the last wound across, but I did it in a really stupid order. So I did I think I did the captain first, and then I was like, well, do I spend 2 points of might to cause 2 wounds because I got a wound, and then I think I got like a 4 or something. So I was like, so because I was an idiot, I just thought I'll spend it just in case. Then it turned out it was actually clutch because that's how many wounds he had. But the commander and a couple of bows survived, which blocked the Balrog getting into the other great beast. Um, so the Balrog actually lost the combat to the commander, but obviously didn't get wounded or anything. Um, and then the goblins failed to kill the other great beast outright. And then the following turn, so the following turn, um, the war Mumak moved closer, so it was like an inch away from my goblins. But because I basically had two moves before it could get into me, because I was like 17 inches away from it, and it moves 8, I think. And yeah, I won that roll off to pin the Mumak in place with a heroic move. And yeah, I just put the Balrog into the captain again, I think, and then the Taskmaster was behind because he managed to whip the commander to get his point back for the roll off, which was pretty sweet. The heroic move roll off, sorry. So yeah, I kind of swamped the Taskmaster, swamped the two remaining dudes, and put the Balrog into the commander. And then again, I won the combat with the Great Beast, didn't cause any wounds, which sucked, but I killed the captain and moved the Great Beast towards the Mumak. The Balrog towards the Mumak, because I thought, slightly arrogantly, like, look, this Great Beast has like 2 wounds left, and I'll get in and kill it next turn, even if I fluff this turn. So, slightly arrogant, but then it meant the Balrog's that much closer to the War Mumak. Following turn was pretty important because the Beastmaster and my captain stood in front of it, both called a move, so Liam won priority. I didn't call another move, which maybe I should have done with my other captain to extract a point of might out of the Great Beast commander, but then he 50-50 chance he gets whipped and then doesn't lose the might, whereas I think then I would have 1 might on the captain in front of the Mumak. All the goblins, so I won that roll off, so I charged the captain into the War Mumak. Nobody else got in because they were all too far away from the Balrog as part of the heroic move. In retrospect, what I should have probably done is not call with me. Make sure the captain not make sure, but like pray the captain gets in, and then move the Balrog, and then the courage buff moves with him, and then I could sort of get him for free. But I can't remember, to be honest, what my thinking was. It was probably that if the captain doesn't get in, then I'm pretty screwed, basically. So I probably called. Yeah, that's probably why it made sense to call the with me. Then the issue was it meant the Great Beast did some trampling, and I think he trampled like 4 or 5 guys, I think. So it was actually not a bad trample. I think this entire time his shooting was taking a bit of a toll as well. Like it wasn't nuts, but it had its moments, to be fair. So then, yes, I got in and surrounded the Great Beast again, and the Taskmaster, and then I moved. So I did that before I moved the Balrog. Then I moved the Balrog across to sort of do courage nonsense. So my captain lost the combat against the Mumak, I think, but wasn't wounded, which was weird. And by this point, I had wounded the Mumak once or twice through shooting. Because I know I wounded him once with a Prowler throwing dagger, which was pretty nuts. It wasn't the Mumak I wounded with extra bow fire. So I did the wound with the Prowler on the Mumak, but then I did a couple of wounds on the Beastmaster through shooting, but he saved it with fate, so it was alright. And then the subsequent turn, I think I got the roll off again. I left you hanging with the Great Beast, didn't I? Yeah, so I killed the Great Beast that turn. Captain survived along with like 1 or 2 others. Just to make a long story short, on that side, I didn't really push up on the objective because it took me a while to kill the captain and the Taskmaster because I didn't have a ton of stuff around there, and I sort of fluffed a couple of times. So yes, that was kind of taking its time. And then I didn't one pump the Mumak, but I think I got in. Yeah, I think I got in with a heroic move roll off again, another one going my way. Got in, did a bunch of wounds to it, and then I think the following turn I won priority, but the Beastmaster was out of might, so I got in, and that's when I finished it off, I think. And again, I combated it off because it's free. So by this point, basically everyone on my side of the board was dead. Well, I think possibly mopping up the captain for an extra turn after I killed the Moonmac. And then all the guys on Liam's back objective started running away, but not quickly enough. And this is where, if it was a friendly, I'd have said like, look, I've won. Let's like call it a day. But because it was a tournament, I know it's not like a super competitive tournament, but I was still a bit like, well, if I can go pick it up, I'll be happy because that's like extra VPs. But I probably wouldn't make him suffer in the sense that I wouldn't like make him watch me as I sort of dragged it off the opposite board edge. I just wanted to go and pick it up. I did that in the end. So I just picked it up before his last guy was killed by the Balrog, so I was holding it, which was cool. I forgot to say I set the Balrog ablaze as well with the Shadow and Flame rule, which is pretty funny. Because you just kind of imagine a big elephant on fire. Sort of like, I charged the Rohirrim, but the elephant's on fire. That'd be pretty wild. But yeah, so I think I got 8-0 on that one because I was holding the objective and then broken and leader kill. So that was cool. I actually enjoyed that game, and it's one of those ones where you get you don't want to get complacent because again everything went my way that could have really. In the tramples weren't very good. I got the clutch roll offs and the clutch priority at the end, so it's kind of one of those things where like nothing didn't go my way. But like the only thing that didn't go my way is the Balrog lost the combat to the captain once, and that was like that's it. Everything else just went perfectly really, in terms of luck. So it's just one of those where, if basically I was like whiffing a bunch of stuff and the tramples were really good and I lost a few clutch roll offs. I mean that could be my army steamrolled, and so it's one of those where you can't get too complacent, I think. But anyway, yes, that was a good game. I enjoyed that one. So yes, on to the last game. So last game I was against Andrew, who I played last time I was at Milton Keynes when I took that disgusting Angmar list at 800 points, which is probably the most gross list I've ever taken to a tournament that I can remember, to be honest. It was horrific. So I kind of felt a bit bad I inflicted that on him last time. But on the flip side, we re-rolled the sort of killing pool, so it was to the death contest of champions and lords of battle. He vetoed contest of champions, obviously, because it's a Balrog against Theoden. Conceivably, he could actually win that one if he was able to keep Theoden away from the Balrog and just mowing down goblins. But again, it's kind of like, why would you do that? So I didn't want to play Lords of Battle because I think he caused more wounds than me, because I have more models, they're more squishy, and he has riders, so it's like he'll obviously just ride me down and like rack up the kills, and there's not really much I could do about it. I didn't want to play to the death either, to be honest, because obviously that's what's that, leader, banner, broken, quartered are the victory points. Conceivably he could just skirmish me the whole game and possibly win by quartering me if he was sort of skirmish for ages and then charged and killed enough dudes, or he could just do a wound on the Balrog and just skirt me the whole game. There's not really much I could like. That would probably be the sort of jammiest way to win. So yeah, I wasn't super confident about this because, like I said, I was against Rise of Theoden, so it was Theoden, Eomer, Dernhelm, Elfhelm, which I thought was interesting. Elfhelm over Daelwyn is an interesting pick, I think. I don't mind it. I just think Daelwyn's objectively better, but then I also have a soft spot for Elfhelm, so it's like I get it. And then obviously gambling with Magic Flag. And then obviously you went heavy with the Royal Guard, but there were still a fair amount of riders with bows, just normal dudes. So there was a problem, is that the board was quite open, which, fine, that's not the worst thing. There's a bit of woodland, so that's as bad for him as it is for me, really. But there's a big water thing in the middle, and obviously in shallow water, so it's kind of like he doesn't care about it and I do. So suddenly there's a big thing in the middle that he can charge across 10 inches and I'm moving 2.5 inches through. So that wasn't great. I didn't really know what to do. I went to bubble up to do a march, but then I did it so badly in terms of where my captains were that I decided I probably wasn't going to. And also I thought, what's the point in marching? Because fine, I can sort of fly up the board a bit, but he'd sort of be a fool to just either A, charge in, which kind of makes marching redundant anyway, or B, I just, peel my might up the wall marching and then just move away, because it's just like with marching, I'm moving 8 inches with goblins, 9 with the Balrog, and yes, I have a threat range of like, with the whip as well, the 8-inch whip, but you know, the problem is I could potentially whip in someone and then combat off them, and that sort of shunts them up the board. But then he's totally unsupported, and that's when the Balrog can die if you come up against riders of Theoden and you've sort of got the Balrog alone, and all the heroes get in and striking and surrounded, and like that's when stuff can go wrong. So I was keen not to have the Balrog separated in this. So I didn't really know what to do, so I just started shuffling up the board really. I left my drum in some woods with a few friends around it. I think I left like four friends around it, 2 for each drummer. I started moving up the board. I kind of splintered off one warband a bit to cover the area where the sort of shortest route for them and the drum. But there wasn't. Obviously, there was like a wide flanking move they can do that I was quite far away from. And then I sort of carried on shuffling up. And then as I went, I sort of then covered my left with the warband between 2 buildings with the Balrog at the front, but not so far ahead that I couldn't support the following turn. And yeah, Andrew played it right in that he basically kind of melted away to the flanks as I pushed forwards. So he had some guards on my left, and then he had Dernhelm. Actually, I think he had all his heroes apart from Eomer moving towards my right, and it looked like they were going to take Dernhelm's going to take some guys on a wide flanking position to take out my drum, and same with his guys on my left. It looked like they might do the same. So I like I said, I didn't really have like a solid plan. I was just a bit like, well, I'll just sort of push up and see what happens. But as my plan sort of developed as things sort of happened. So Elfhelm and sort of 3 also riders sort of came in and attacked my guys that I was holding to block the sort of short route to the drum. So he'd kind of committed there, and his guard on my left were there without a hero, and obviously was sort of carried on pushing that way. Dernhelm took sort of a wide flanking position, so I had a clear route to my drum, which I realised I kind of ballsed up, and there wasn't really much I could do about it, to be honest. But what I did do, which I sort of pat myself on the back about a little bit, is I called a march with my captain, and I think the idea was to make him think I was going to go forwards and basically follow him. But what I did instead is sort of collapsed back on myself, and I ended up with the most horrific formation ever. I'm not sure if there's a photo of it, but it was a mess anyway. And after this march, it was even more of a mess. It was just ridiculous. But it meant that I basically collapsed to be sort of, basically forming a line, kind of like a curved line around, in front of for me, behind the pond, and then sort of between buildings. The problem is I boxed my own Balrog out, which was pretty dumb. And basically the riders were just sort of punishing me this whole time. I just couldn't seem to do much. I think I sort of whittled away a little bit, but not really. And yeah, the Balrog wasn't up to much. I kind of boxed him out, and I was losing goblins. I'd lost over 10 before I killed a model. I think it was bad. And there was sort of no sign of the wind changing either. For example, like I whipped in a royal guard with the Balrog and then just lost the combat to it. Oh, for God's sake. But yeah, I won't sort of go on at length, but so the plan is that he's going to engage around my drum, and he has to probably commit. Well, he doesn't have to, actually. To be fair, it might have been wiser to disengage with Elfhelm, move backwards, and sort of fall back into a skirmishing type pattern. But I felt he sort of committed there, and he sent in enough guys where he's committed there, so I can focus around that point and he won't skirmish me anymore, and I can get to grips with him. And again with my drum, there was another thing where I was thinking, well, he's gonna go for it, and that's that sort of thing. Yes, so just kind of each bit in sort of part. So on my left, I had a few prowlers, a few goblins, and a captain, and he had 4 royal guard and 2 4 royal guard and then 1 rider. Basically, I took casualties here, but ultimately I was able to kill them and then push those guys back towards the middle, where sort of the Balrog was near the water. The drum died, but it took a few turns to kill him, so that it was only really by the end game that Eowyn came back in as a threat. In the middle, there's not too much to say really. The Balrog did eventually get in. He got in on Elfhelm, who sort of very correctly heroic defensed. So I was like, sod it, I'll just throw him then. So I threw him, dismounted Eomer and Gamling, and another guard, but like who cares? So that was cool, and I think the Balrog sort of did fairly okay from this point. Well, I'm not sure he lost a combat from this point, or if he did, it kind of didn't really matter or whatever. And I think the following turn, then I got him in on a lone royal guard and kind of made it look like, well, actually I was coming around to fight Elfhelm again, who I think possibly defensed another time. I can't remember. Because obviously there's a lot of sort of giving might back and stuff. So I think Elfhelm got might back a couple of times and either moved or defensed or whatever. Either way, I then sort of actually combated the other way, where there were some riders who charged me by the sort of shallow pool, and I was able to get into one, hurl across the line where I hit, I think 3 of my goblins, but I got all 3 riders. So I think I sort of killed 1, dismounted the other 2. Actually, no, dismounted the 3 because I think I only killed the guy who I threw, I think. But that was fine. I lost 2 goblins, but it's like, they're no longer, on horse, basically ruining my good time. And a couple of riders from the bottom where Dernhelm was sort of pushed up, and I sort of surrounded them, and I think I eventually killed them. And after I did that, hurled the Balrog, I then sort of combated back around and then sort of came behind his line a bit, but the lines had more or less disintegrated by this point. Eomer got an important role where he threw a spear as he went in, and I think he rolled the 5 and decided to might it into a 6, and then he only needed a 5, but down to 4, because obviously I think the might also affects subsequent roll. He rolled a 3, so he spent the second point of might and his final one he had at the time to do a wound on the Balrog, which is pretty important. But otherwise, the Balrog sort of went untouched, and I think he lost a couple of times to Eomer, so it was just, but Eomer didn't wound him, so I was like, it didn't really matter. I'm not sure where it fell in the sequence of events, but Theoden was away from the Balrog in the sense that he was safe from a heroic combat, but because of the shooting being measured from the head thing, I kind of had the Balrog in a position where he could actually see Theoden quite clearly, and I said to Andrew, like, because I was so pleased with myself for thinking of it, but like the biggest brain move ever, because obviously I told her about the Shadow and Flame rules and the whip, but my big brain move was, I was in combat with 1 royal guard, but my big brain move was because it's the start of the shoot phase, I was going to use flame to set him on fire, kill him, freeing the Balrog up to then throw a throwing weapon at Theoden, presumably not killing him because obviously I can't, dragging him in and then killing him in combat. It's because obviously you drag him, I'm pretty sure you drag him over the lines and stuff. So that was like the big brain move. But I set the rider on fire and the horse died and the rider lived, which was annoying. But I was quite pleased. I was probably quite insufferable because I was busy patting myself on the back. I was just like, oh, I've got a really big brain move. Oh, I can't wait to tell you about it. And then I told him, and I was just like busy blowing smoke up my own ass, basically. But I think he appreciated it. So, but it didn't pay off. But it would have been cool if it had, but it didn't. And that's basically it. So Theoden sort of ran away. Eomer held up the Balrog for the rest of the game. Andrew called death when Dernhelm and Aemir were in combat. The others weren't. So Aemir struck. I don't think it really made a difference. Yeah, because I think by the end of the game, I think the last turn I killed Aemir, but it didn't matter by that point. He kind of held up the Balrog for, kind of neutralised him for sort of the last sort of quarter or eighth of the game sort of thing, last 2 or 3 turns. Dernhelm fluffed her roll in death, which was pretty clutch because he would have broken me if I was breakable, because obviously the Balrog's nonsense rules. But he was close to quartering me. I was close to quartering him, but that sort of failed death was clutch. And then the following turn, I killed enough guys to quarter him, and I must have been about 4 models away from being quartered. But then obviously the game ended. Because of how it was sort of lined up, and because he was just taking off goblins left, right, and centre. Obviously, had a lot of goblins, but he was taking a lot of them off, and I just didn't have an answer because all his heroes were alive, apart from obviously Aemir was dead right at the end. Elfhelm may or may not have been dead, I don't know, but also, like, who cares? It's like Elfhelm. But yeah, he had Theoden and Dernhelm still on horse. Gamling was okay with the magic flag of justice, and he had a smattering of people around who, if we sort of carried on playing, he'd probably have killed all my goblins, probably the turn afterwards, or at least quartered me. So I was convinced I was sort of losing the whole game because it felt like he had the momentum the whole time, and he was kind of, he went off, he killed my drum, he was smashing me, just with riders. I just really just kept losing combats and then dying immediately, and I felt like the Balrog did okay, but didn't do anything too special. Like, he killed a few guys, did a couple of hurls, killed Aemir, fine. But then it was really at the end when I was like, well, I'm not broken, and if I can quarter you, then, what does that mean? So then at the end of the game, I think it was that I'd broken him, obviously, and quartered him, and obviously he didn't get those points, but he got the leader wound and the banner, but my drum was destroyed. So I think it was 7-3, and it was literally the Depth of Moria not breaking special rule that saved me, because that would have, I would have, I don't know actually, would I have lost? I have no idea. So I still would have quartered him without, I don't know. I haven't got the book in front of me, but either way, it would have been even squeakier bum than it was already. And it was such a close game, but yeah, I ended up winning that one, even though it felt like I lost. And then we're sort of turning up points, and I was like, oh, okay, I've won, perfect. But yeah, no, it was a really good game to end on. It was very, very close and very good. And yeah, again, I don't think Andrew put the foot wrong. The only thing is like, do you try and get yourself in a situation where you can just sort of go in and try and get all your heroes, or at least 3 of them maybe, on the Balrog. Try and put enough wounds on him, like burn all the might. Try and put enough wounds on him so that I break normally, because then it's kind of very doable, I think, to take the list apart. Because as soon as you spread me out, like, yes, I'm passing stuff around the Balrog because he's fearless, and also I think he's got the Goblin Courage special rule thing. But as soon as I'm sort of spread out, that's stuff sort of start running away. Or if you kill my captains to eliminate how many standfasts I'm getting, it's kind of very doable to get at least a few of them running away and that sort of thing. Because obviously he was broken, but didn't care because he had all the standfasts and all the bodyguards. So yeah, it was okay. But the risk is there. Obviously, they fluff, the Balrog wins, and then that's not good. that's people getting dismounted at the very least. So we're kind of talking about that, and then I was thinking, well, he could have just skirmished me even longer. And I'm thinking, yeah, but I did have 5 bows and throwing daggers on 10 prowlers, so it's like, yes, that also would have been a horrific game, frankly. But that's potentially an option. But then all it takes is kind of a bad move, leaving someone within 8 of the Balrog, or my bow's dismounting. Dismounting Theoden or something, and then marching in and kind of forcing an engagement there on my terms, sort of thing. So I don't know. I think Yeah, I don't know really. It was close anyway. So it's just kind of the lack of easily dealing with the Balrog was the major thing here. I think because of how the points work, I guess it's not one way you can ignore the Balrog. Because obviously there's a lot of scenarios where this list. I mean, riders would just take me apart and ignore the Balrog happily, and I'd lose. So like if we're playing objective ones, the riders probably do quite well actually because they kill everything that's not the Balrog, run around capturing all the objectives. So if I'd have played him game 1 or 2, that would have been bad. If I'd have played Lords of Battle, that I would have just lost. There's no question. If we play Contest, there's actually like a reasonable chance I still lose because the Balrog's a beast, but then all he has to do is sort of fluff or just sort of chuck in someone like Gambling or Elfhelm with infinite might from the magic flag and just defense every turn. So so I think To the Death was actually because I didn't want to play it because I thought we deployed so far apart and he can just skirmish me and there's nothing I can do about it, and I just didn't want to play that game. But I think actually it's probably the better one for me out of all of them, maybe apart from I probably done Contest just because it's like straightforward. But sorry, I kind of went on for a bit there. So anyway, I managed to win that one, and that put me in first in the tournament because Miles also won all his games with the Fellowship, and he beat Depths of Moria last game in Contest of Champions, which was interesting, with Gandalf as leader. Then that kind of leads into my point of like, the Balrog's good, but is he like reliable enough to, Contest of Champions like reliably win that? I guess not, as it turns out. But yeah, I think because of VP difference that put me ahead, so that was nice. It was only 10 players. I quite like that actually. It's like a nice intimate little tournament actually, and there was some good lists. I think there was 2 depths. There was a Moria with a dragon and cave drake. There was the Fellowship with everyone and then Bill the pony. I think there were 2 riders of Theoden. Obviously, there was the War Beast list. There was Ugluk Scouts, and then Army of Thror. I don't think I'm missing anything. Obviously, Iron Hills, but I played that. So I quite like that actually. And it's just nice, isn't it, to sort of go to a small tournament where you can sort of interact with everyone who's there rather than kind of there's like 40 people when you talk to the people you play and then whoever else you sort of already know kind of thing. But yes, anyway, I'm going on. It's good, and then with my voucher I bought Knights of the Realm for my Bretonians, so I think I'll do half of those of Knights of the Realm, and then I might do some as Knights Errant because I don't know. I think they look interesting, but that's that's kind of the extent of the logic. Anyway, sorry, I've waffled on a lot. So thanks for listening, and I'll catch you guys at the next one.